All right, guys, welcome back to our third episode of the Dream Builders podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Kizy, and I'm with Randy from Sapphire Luxury Homes and Landscaping. I want to take this episode in this direction because you're a custom home builder. There's a lot of things to discuss with that, but a lot of people kind of don't know what that means. And I've seen firsthand, especially where it can be very, very overwhelming. So there are certain decisions that you could make, but maybe not necessarily that you should. So tell me a little bit about that, like in your experience. Because I imagine if a client was involved in every single decision, that's overwhelming for everybody. It probably burdens the process. I don't even know that they want that, even though sometimes they think they do. So tell me how you navigate that part of it.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we're a custom home builder, but we do have a niche, right? You know, I've had clients come to me and say, "Oh, I got this great lakefront property and I want to build this home, but it's only 2,000 square feet." Or I want to build a barndominium and whatever. Those aren't what we do. So can we do them? Sure, but it's not what we're great at doing. That's not what we are set up to do. You know, if the client comes in and wants to design something within our realm, we have two opportunities or two paths that we could take. We have a portfolio of plans that we've pre-designed from our best expertise on what we find clients want and need, right? Today's latest ways of living, right? If you go back every decade or so, life changes and the way we use our homes change, right? People used to walk in right into the family room, or the staircase is right in front of your face, or all these things, they change over time. Now, the kitchens used to be completely separated, with a door.
Mm-hmm.
So we've curated about maybe a dozen, 15 different plans, one-story homes, two-story homes with first floor primary bedrooms or primary suites, or two-story homes with second floor primaries, and sometimes two bedrooms on the first floor, two bedrooms on the second floor, which we found has been a trend lately. We call it multi-generational homes. So anyway, we have a portfolio of plans that we've created that the clients can look through, or they tell us their needs and wants, and we tell them, hey, this works really well, and we could take that as our base or as our template, and then from there we can modify it, customize it to meet their wants and needs, their budget, or the lot constraints sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. I find that's definitely the easiest, most cost-effective, and fastest way to go about it, especially since we're building anywhere from 10, 15, sometimes 20 homes are under construction at any given time. So we can walk. That's one of the cool things about what we do, is we can walk the clients through these homes at different stages. Oftentimes, if we have a model home or a spec that's recently completed, or homes that are nearing completion, we can take the client through that and get them to really understand a sense of the space.
Yep.
Whether it's the correlation of rooms or the volume, or you want a two-story great room, or do you want a raised ceiling? Do you want a large foyer? Do you want a small foyer? Some people think that's a waste of space. Some people think that's a grand entry, right?
Yeah.
And all those decisions, those are the types of questions that we ask the clients. So we will guide them through that process. We have a checklist that we go through, and what's important to you. Obviously, the number of bedrooms is important. Where do you want these bedrooms? Which floor? A lot of times, many of our clients range drastically in age, but if I had to say a typical scenario is a family with kids that are late elementary, middle school, and where this is that next step, next evolution of their lives, where they've made money and they've been thinking about this dream home. So they come to us and we guide them through this process. What's important to you? What space? Oh, some people think, oh, we need a formal dining room and a formal living room. Well, you don't need it. I mean, do you want it? that's a different question. Oh, well, you have to have it. Well, why do you have to have it? For resale. It's like, maybe 20 years ago that was true, but that's not really the case anymore. Formal dining rooms are a rarity these days. If you really entertain that way, or you eat dinner that way, or you do it often enough where it's a good use of that space, great. More than happy to design. We're designing a really, really cool one right now for our client. But you don't need it because you think you need it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the interesting part about being a custom home builder. Oh, people think about resale, and resale is important. I'm not discounting that, but there are aspects that people really don't care about, or are they going to buy or not buy this house in the future because of this one decision or one space, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're spending this kind of money and you're investing this kind of time, it's important to think about how you are going to utilize that space. So we'll guide you through that process. Now, if one of our portfolio plans within our portfolio doesn't work for you, or you just want something more unique, then we offer that as well. We do full custom design, blank sheet of paper. We're doing a super cool project right now, a little north of us, that's 7,000 square foot home with 4,000 square feet of finished basement. Then we have a whole separate fitness studio. Then we have a whole separate like pole barn scenario, and all that was custom from scratch, exterior, interior, fit for the property, because it's on 160 acres of hunting grounds. It's pretty unique situation. So we will tailor that approach, that design approach and the architectural approach to the client. Some know what they want.
Yeah.
Most don't. They have a general idea, right? I want a large kitchen. I want a big island. These are the types of feedback we get, which is for us fairly common, right?
Yeah.
But it's how do we piece those things together to best fit your lifestyle, to best fit on the property, take advantage of whether it's the views of the property. If you're lakefront, we want as many of the important spaces on the rear of the home, or golf front, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's a deep and narrow lot, do we do a courtyard style garage? There's all these different decisions that we make based on the site conditions and constraints and the client's wants and needs. And then I always remind my clients, like, you're 2 years away from moving into this home.
Yeah.
So if your kids are 10 and 12 right now, or 5 and 7, or whatever it may be, you got to imagine they're 2 years down the line. And then you're not only building for 2 years from now, you're building for the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Right.
Some people think they're forever homes. The vast reality is that people don't live in homes forever, even at this caliber. At some point, people outgrow homes, but at other points, the homes outgrow them, right?
Yes.
Your kids move on. You've built this 7,000 square foot home, and it's just the two of you in the home, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Now you don't need that much square foot, so you downsize. So,
Yeah.
and we've done some of those homes as well.
And there's an interesting thing too, because you mentioned like, oh, I have to do this because of these preconceived notions. But I think on the flip side too, you guys have seen things that maybe they didn't think about that you can kind of bring in. And I'm sure you get that out of that questionnaire, like, hey, why don't you think of this? Because I think this would be useful. So I think it's kind of like, they both benefit each other. But you said something interesting that I kind of want to touch on right now, because some people, I'm sure, are contacting you like they're ready to move in. They want to get in as soon as possible. Other people are like, this is my dream home, and I'm going to whatever it takes to get it right. So lot constraints. Have you ever had people fall in love with a plan or a feature so much so that they wait for the right lot rather than make the lot work?
All the time, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Birmingham, for example, the lots are relatively narrow, so you're very much constrained on the width of the home. And so sometimes we design a home for a client with anticipated size of property, and they are waiting for that right size lot, whether it's an 80-foot or 90-foot frontage in Birmingham, or sometimes it's a tear down neighborhood that they really want to be in because it's an up and coming. I don't want to say up and coming because it's established, but it's rejuvenating, right?
Sure.
We're tearing down and rebuilding many homes in that neighborhood, and they want to be there for one reason or another, whether it's proximity to their life, or their family, their kids, or highways, or school districts, or whatever it may be. And waiting for that right lot that can fit the property that they want and their lifestyle needs, etc. So that's, I will say, actually, the most challenging part when a client comes to us and wants to build a home, custom home, is finding the right piece of property. We are not in a scenario like in Texas or other areas where there's tons of new developments going around. There's not a lot of development that happens in Metro Detroit,
Right.
especially at the custom luxury level. There's handfuls of lots here and there, if it's even a handful, a couple here, a couple there, in newer neighborhoods. Otherwise, oftentimes we're doing tear down rebuilds.
Yeah. And to touch on that too, I'm sure like some of these lots just pop up wherever you can get them, but I'm sure there's situations where people like they want to be in a neighborhood around other people or subdivision. You know, they don't want to be like one home on a cul-de-sac or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. My wife and I talk about that all the time. So we built our home 4 years ago, and we're in a newer community with sidewalks, 150 other homes, all the same caliber, same age range, which we love. But for our next home, we want a little bit more property. We're on a half acre, which is not bad, but we want a little bit more land, a little more central to where we, dine and hang out and whatnot. But the challenge is, we're going to be in a tear down community more likely than not. There might not be sidewalks. You might have one really cool new house and then an older, 1950s home that's not very well kept. So these are the trade-offs. And a perfect lot really doesn't exist. And if it does, it's super expensive.
Right.
Where you're paying a major premium for that.
Yeah, I think it's always like a negotiation that people are having with themselves, right? Like, what is that need? What is that want? And I think you guys can also, guide people through that based on, what they tell you.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example. We just signed up a new client yesterday, and Saba, our sales director, has been working with them for a couple of years. They live in the Novi area right now. He works in Ann Arbor. They wanted to be in that area, but there was like nothing. She was looking for years and they couldn't find the right property. And then we ended up picking up a piece in Bloomfield, and they ended up coming all the way here because it checked all the boxes, except it's not as close to his work as they wanted. But they were willing to concede on that one thing.
Right.
It was in a newer community with sidewalks, gated. It was a corner lot, which they wanted to face the right direction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And all the other boxes. So, but you have to make, sometimes you have to make conscious decisions of what's best, right? This is not going to be perfect.
I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the client. I'm sure you get this question all the time. What's the true cost of building a custom home? What's that cost per square foot? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's like my least favorite question, especially the cost per square foot part. I mean, the cost per square foot is a very arbitrary number. You can build a 5,000 square foot home for $300 a square foot. You can build a 5,000 square foot home for $1,500 a square foot.
Yeah.
Or you can take that 5,000 square feet in Miami or LA, and it's going to be $2,000. New York, it's going to be $3,000 a square foot. What does that mean? So I use this analogy all the time. Like, how much does a car cost?
Yeah.
Cars range dramatically, right? $10,000 to $1 million plus. Okay, let's narrow that down. Well, how much does a sports car cost? Well, you got Camaros at 25, 30,000. You got Ferraris that are better, right? For hundreds of thousands. Well, how much does an American sports car cost, right? You can narrow it down, but it's hard to answer that question without knowing what I'm pricing out, right?
Right.
So we need a little more information. Can I give you generic or ranges? Sure. But it's hard to compare apples to apples when you're talking about cost per square foot, especially when you're factoring in things like finished basements, which aren't considered part of the square footage,
Right.
or landscaping, which have nothing to do with square footage, or land value, right? If the land is $200,000 or $2 million, it completely skews the per square foot value or cost. If you have $100,000 landscape package or a $2 million landscape package, completely skews the cost per square foot consideration, right? And the finished basements are the crazy ones. Like, you can spend $1 million in your basement, no problem.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't say no problem. Most of our clients spend 300,000 to 500,000 in their basement, but we have $1 million basements.
Yeah.
But that increases the cost tremendously, but the denominator, the square footage, changes zero.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're adding $200 a square foot to the cost of the home potentially,
Right.
without changing how many square feet they're counting. Because in Metro Detroit, they don't count basements, even if they're finished, as part of the square footage of the home.
And I imagine that's also a challenge because that also seems to be the let's call it the currency of comparison, right? When somebody's talking to multiple builders,
Sure.
but some builders might include more in that cost, whereas everything is a la carte. And I'm sure you've been in situations where a lower starting point, people end up paying more per square foot when they started adding all these things.
All the time. Yeah. That's a great point. There's other builders out there that kind of have a bare bones baseline, and they say, what's important to you, and we're going to add those things. But that upfront cost is very intriguing, we'll say, because it's substantially lower than what we may be at. But what we include in our base is what we expect a minimum for our luxury homes, right? Now, with custom homes, sky's the limit, right?
Sure.
We do all kinds of things that, we have a home right now where we're doing a 3-story slide, right? How do you factor that into the cost per square foot situation? Yeah, it's really cool. So that particular home, they saw our Cameron model and they loved it, which that home was a 5,500 square foot home with a first floor primary. We ended up with an 8,000 square foot home with a primary on the second floor and a 3-story slide. It's a completely different home, right? That kind of goes back to our initial conversation of really customizing, even though it was a portfolio plan or a home that they liked that we had done, that they saw. We took that and we completely customized it. In the past, there was like a little stigma, we'll say, that we were a cookie cutter builder because we had a portfolio of plans.
Yeah.
When in fact, that's never been the case. Do we have a portfolio of plans? Absolutely, we do. It's to help guide our clients from a starting point for most clients that don't know where to start or what they want and need. But we never have built the same home twice. Every time we're pushing, pulling, adding, changing.
Yeah.
Or again, starting from scratch, full custom. So that's the reality, is everything can be customized to meet your wants, needs, or budget, right? So we can work backwards. How much does it cost to build a home, was your question, right?
Yeah.
There's so many drivers to that. What kind of appliances and cabinetry and window package, all these different things that can play a major role. The square footage is one factor. It's a big factor, but it's not the only factor. It's one of many factors. In general, most of our homes range, without counting the land, because that can fluctuate dramatically.
Sure.
In the range of, when all said and done, $500 to $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah.
So for a 5,000 square foot home, for example, that could be $2.5 to $5 million.
Sure.
Which would potentially include the home, all the fit and finishes, the finished basement, potentially the landscaping, etc. And oftentimes all of those things are packaged in what we offer, right?
Yeah.
On the lower end, it might be $2.5 million. On the higher end, it might be $5 million. It could be more, right?
More, yeah.
For us at Sapphire, currently our minimum engagement is $2 million. So without counting land, that's the minimum that we'll contract for a new home.
Yeah.
$2 million. But like I mentioned earlier, on average, most of our homes in that $3 to $5 million range.
And contrasting that with like a production builder, because I imagine that like a lot of these people are naturally taking the next step. It's not necessarily like I'm going from one high-end luxury home and building another one. It's very different when it's like a multiple choice, very safe decisions, and it doesn't even just go to more complex decisions, right? It goes to decisions you did not have to make before,
or you didn't even know are there to make.
Right. Yeah. And land is a perfect example, because if you're dealing with a production builder in a subdivision, that's just part of it, right? Landscaping. The extent of that is usually sod and sprinklers, so this gets buried into that cost per square foot in a custom thing. So it's very hard to compare to just like,
oh yeah, there's no comparison.
The building.
Going back to my real estate roots, I had represented numerous clients in purchases of new builds, whether it was for the builders that was representing, or sometimes it was a Pulte or a Lombardo, or
Yep.
which are, production style homes or semi-custom homes.
Yeah.
And that there's a list of options you can choose from, and these are the options.
Yeah.
You want 2-car garage or a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
And those are your two options.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to garages, we've done all kinds of crazy things for garages, right? And it's vastly varies, and it's completely a whole different experience. There is no list of options. We recommend things.
Yeah.
We design based on clients' needs and styles, and our styles kind of run the gamut. We go from ultra modern, French country, English Tudor, modern Mediterranean, traditional, farmhouse, Scandinavian. I mean, you name it. We've either built it or have designed it or in the process of building it, which I love. I love that wide array of styles. Now, oftentimes there's a little bit of a sapphire twist to it, if you will, where we kind of our signature look to a certain perspective, but they and even those within those styles, the cost ranges so much.
Right.
An ultra modern flat roof house with predominantly glass is way more expensive to build than a traditional brick and stone, home.
Yeah. And to what you just said, like the sapphire style, I think that's important, right? I think a lot of people are looking at homes you've built or looking at your portfolio, like obviously like that style. It's, your way of doing things. From your perspective, though, what are the biggest cost drivers? Like, where do things tend to potentially get out of hand in a custom home?
Land. Well, let's go back to land, because land isn't just land.
Yeah.
If you were buying a cookie cutter home in a developed neighborhood, the land, there's little premiums for this lot or that lot based on if it's a walkout or whatever. But when you're doing a large piece of property, acre or more, and oftentimes these are tear down properties, or they're just complex lots where you have to factor in costs for demolition or new utilities or moving utilities because there's power lines running through the middle of this property, or the grade, which is the ground itself. Is it rolling hills, and is it flat? If it's flat, it's pretty easy. But if there's a lot of grade change to this, and it's a walkout, and we're gonna have to do retaining walls, and we're gonna have to pull dirt out, push dirt in, move things around to accommodate, that stuff all gets very expensive. It's not uncommon for us to guide a client through the land acquisition part of it and factor in $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for site development on a land, a lot that kind of already exists. But that's the reality of some of these homes. So that's somewhere that we mentioned maybe a couple episodes ago. If you're not thinking about this properly or guided through it properly, you may never realize that you bought this piece of land for $500,000 or whatever it may be, and there's another $200,000-$300,000 that needs to be spent on it, right? You think, oh, I invested $500,000, I got to tear down this house, and I'm ready to go. That's not always the case. So, site development is one of those things that's a cost driver. We mentioned there is the upfront architectural phase of design and the interior design. Typically from initial conceptual budget that we create for a client, where we say, okay, this give or take 5,000 square foot home with these features and amenities and this finished basement, this landscaping, we're going to ballpark whatever, $3 million for this home, right?
Yeah.
And then we tell them from there, as we go through the design process, I would factor in another give or take 20% of that price towards design decisions. So we're not trying to sell unrealistic expectations, right? We're not going to say, okay, it's $3 million, you're going to get everything under the sun for this price point. That's not the reality. As we go through the design process, we present things that are really cool and unique that the clients really want to enjoy or fall in love with, or sometimes they see stuff online or at a friend's home or whatever and say, I really want this, or they think of something. Oh, I want an elevator. Well, an elevator isn't a small ticket, it's not $5,000 or $10,000 option. You could get, around $100,000 to add an elevator, or they want a basement underneath their garage,
Yep.
or there's these big ticket items that sometimes develop as we're designing the home that could add costs. A lot of it, interior design, sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
You can get light fixtures for $500. You can get light fixtures for $50,000.
Yeah.
And beyond. We had a house where we imported Italian, custom Italian light fixtures that were $30,000, $40,000 a piece. Italian marble that came literally from Italy on a boat. We were waiting for it. That was super expensive. We did a Moroccan-style home a couple years back that they were very true to that Moroccan style, and we exhausted our American opportunities. So they literally went to Morocco, found particular items that they liked, and we either had to recreate them custom in America, or we imported them over.
I remember that one.
Yeah, super cool house, and the clients were dedicated to that style, which I loved because it was unique, it was special. And again, it was a modern twist on Moroccan mansion. But there's no limit to how much you can spend, right? And again, I'll go back to a comment I made earlier. We can tailor the approach or the design to the budget. So if your budget is X, I'll tell you, this is what we can do for X. And these are the more important. These are the need to haves bucket, and this is the want to haves bucket. We'll get all your need to haves, and maybe we'll get some of the want to haves.
Right.
The challenge becomes when clients have a lot of want to haves, but not the budget for it necessarily. Then we have to be strategic. What can be done later? Or what can we live without? Or what can we value engineer in a certain way? How can we accomplish this look without necessarily importing marble from Italy? Those are the types of things that we do sometimes to meet budgetary restrictions.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the direction I wanted to take this in. The directions of like needs versus wants. So from your perspective, what aspects are like you don't cut corners here, like you'll regret this later? What are some of those things that maybe people are thinking about, but you're just like, no, you really should do this, or you'd be disappointed later?
The structural components of the home, those are non-negotiables. You can never change those. So what I mean by that is the size of rooms or closets. Oftentimes clients come to me and they draw an arbitrary line. I'm not going to cross 5,000 square feet. That's my maximum size that I want. Well, fine, but do all the rooms and the things that you want, can they actually make sense in that number? Or what if we end up at 5,100 to make things right? And oh no, I want to be at 5,000. And then they make concessions on spaces that they do regret or would regret because they make a closet too small or whatever it may be. Bathrooms and mudrooms and all these ancillary type spaces where people allocate proper space to family rooms, kitchens, dining, but then they sometimes decide to take space out of a laundry room or kids' bathrooms or whatever, which, for a few extra square feet, this is your opportunity, right? It's not crown molding that you can change or paint color or carpet. Not that we do a lot of carpet anymore, but these aren't things that can be changed. Ceiling heights, that's another structural component, right? Do you want that volume, that additional height? The exterior facade, whether we're using brick, stone, limestone, ephes, metal, porcelain, siding, whatever it may be, there isn't a chance. It doesn't make sense to try to change that later, right? So those are the areas that I recommend we don't cut corners on. From a structural stability perspective, that's not even an option. We're not going to even give you an option to cut corners. We're only going to use the best grade of lumber, the best subflooring, floor joists, things of that sort. Those aren't even places that you...
That's the Sapphire Standard.
That's the Sapphire Standard. We won't negotiate that kind of stuff. Are there cheaper alternatives out there? Of course, absolutely there are, but we won't build with those products. I want to sleep well at night knowing that I'm not going to have issues with these homes down the line, right? So I would say those where people could and sometimes choose to pull back from a budget perspective is like the basement, right? We can choose to pre-finish the basement now and you can finish it down the line,
Yeah.
or sometimes interior selections where they can do things later if they choose. The reality of it is when you get to this level of home, most of the times clients don't want to have, honey-do lists or projects to do
Right.
after they move in. Sometimes it's required based on budgetary constraints, but for the most part, if the financing is there, we strongly recommend just doing everything at one time. You're moving into a fully complete, ready home to the point where you just got to bring your clothes,
right,
and you've moved in.
And I think too, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but a lot of times you can do things later, but a finished home is a lot different than a home under construction. If you did paint or trim, and these are people disrupting, your living and making a mess and dinging this and that and the other. And, even pricing wise, right? Like I've been in a situation where we did some trim work in my house after the fact. It was completely different than if I would have just had the builder do it at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned that to the clients, like if you want to finish your basement after the fact, it's going to be 20 to 30% more expensive because, well, they're like, why? It's the same material and labor. Well, if I'm bringing the plumber here and he's plumbing this whole home and he's got to add a bar and a bathroom downstairs, I can negotiate that price far better than if I'm bringing him on a whole separate project just to do a bar and a bathroom, right? And the same goes for the framer and the drywaller and whatever the case may be. Plus, it's all happening sequential within the home. So where it may add 3 months to the build to do it during construction, it may take 6 months to do it after the fact.
Right.
And getting people in and out of your home, and oftentimes contractors like to work at like 6 in the morning, ringing your doorbells and trampling through your home and banging and cutting and dust. And it's definitely a nightmare.
Yeah.
We have gone back and finished basements for certain clients after the fact. I mean, it's not an easy process, and it's very uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So if you can find a way to do it, if you know you want to finish the basement, the recommendation is to do it during construction. Same with landscaping. You want to pull into this brand new multi-million-dollar home that you're built and feel proud as you approach the home, right? Curb appeal matters. And not having dirt or just grass up to the house.
Right.
It doesn't look good, doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
Even, we've had many people do pools or patios as a second phase on the line, but do you really want to wake up to that every day for 6 months and whatever?
And they're tearing up your front landscaping, and
there's restoration costs. There's tractors or track loaders or things going back and forth, and pumps and pool equipment or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to tear up things in the finished basement because you got to get new electric because it wasn't planned for.
Right.
Potentially. Obviously, I understand budget's a real thing, right? People have certain means and goals or financials that we have to work around, and I'm all for that. We guide the best that we can, and we'll ultimately, it's in the client's decision to make what's in their best interest.
Yeah. And I've seen that too, like in the onboarding process where, you kind of help clients make these decisions. I think I recall recently I was sitting in on one, and, they were contemplating not doing the basement, and there's no pressure one way or the other, but you kind of ask, like, if this is something you plan to do the next year or two, do it now. If it's your 5-10 years down the line, maybe we'll never do it. I've seen you tell people don't do it too. Yeah. So it's specific to each family, right? So
absolutely. I mean, that's the reality, right? If you're gonna go through this 2-year construction process only to be following up with another 6 months of construction, it's painful.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, we make this journey as seamless as possible and as easy, but there's a lot to it, to building a home. It's not just checking boxes, or when you're picking out a car online, even that sometimes is daunting.
Right.
There's certain trim levels and certain options that you can choose from, and it is what it is. You can't, unless you take it after and customize it, but there aren't millions of options right. But in a home there is. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So Yeah, we definitely guide the client, and I'm constantly considering their lifestyle,
Yeah.
budget, with their stage of life, um, the design of the home, the health of the home, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
In these decisions, we don't we guide our clients, and I tell every client up front, my goal is for you to educate you to make the best decisions for you and your position and your family.
Yeah.
Right? What I don't want to happen is I don't tell them about something, and then
Right.
6-12 months down the road, they're talking to a friend or they see something on TV or online. They come back to me, oh, I really want whatever, maybe a heated driveway.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's way too late to do that.
Right.
Well, you never even told me about that.
Right.
So we talk about common requests, common things that people want,
Yeah.
and we discuss it and we price it out, and we weigh the pros and cons, and then they can decide, yeah, that's something I really want, I'm willing to invest in,
Yeah.
or it's not that important to me, and I'm not, that's something I can skip.
And,
No
and that's one of the worst things too, I think, is like not presenting something or assuming something, and it's like you take away their ability to make, that decision.
No.
I want to end this with something that I observed that I thought was like really interesting, and it just goes back onto that whole process where constantly like, what are your needs? And it goes back to something you said about people kind of draw like an arbitrary line. I won't cross this and that and the other. And a lot of times they start with a great plan. It's like 70% there. And then you start kind of modifying it. And I've seen like plans change. Like a plan got modified so much that you went and pitched it. You know what? This one might start checking those boxes and a lot less changes. And it ends up being marginally more expensive or not more.
Or
Whereas
less
or less, whereas in the beginning it was just like, oh no, I'm not touching that. So a lot of times it's just like, modifying it too much to make it work, and there's just something else that just kind of fits better. So
yeah. And that happened with a client recently where
yeah,
we designed something for them, and they kept, oh, I want to add this space, and I want to add that space, and I want this space here, and I want space, and it got really convoluted and kind of clunky, if you will.
yeah,
I'm not loving the direction that this is going, but we had started in this way, and they were kind of, I don't want to say they were married to it, but they were comfortable with it.
yeah,
And I just was thinking, I was like, you know what? They wanted a second staircase. That's what happened.
yeah,
And I was thinking to try to fit that into this mix, it's just becoming way too messy. I have this other design that we had come up with that I think fits most of these things and flows just so much better.
right.
And so I presented that, and it ended up being almost the same cost with more square footage. So ultimately,
Right.
it's less
The
cost
value
per square
engineering,
foot. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And it worked out better, and that's where they decided to run with, and it turned out to be a better scenario all around.
Awesome. Yeah. It's another episode in the books. Stay tuned for more episodes like this and more insights into the building process and the building company and Sapphire. Thanks, Randy.